Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, July 24th. It is now 5:30 p.m. and the Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors meeting is now called to order. Where I'm going to note attendance for quorum, as all of our board members are present, which is exciting. And I'll pass it over to General Manager Pollack for a safety minute, or do we need to head straight into?
We'll go there and I'll do that when we come back.
Okay, so stay tuned for a safety minute. First, we're going to need to convene into executive session. So will the clerk of the board please read our ORS?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. We will now reconvene. And now we will go into our safety minute. General Manager?
Thank you. Since this is the month of July, which is the first month of the fiscal year, thought it'd be a good way to kick off the new fiscal year in a safe and positive manner, because today's safety message focuses on the value of safety minutes. So sometimes people wonder why we may do this. And thanks goes to our Chief Safety Officer who presented this earlier, and I borrowed it from him. So the value of safety minutes. One, it improves safety culture. Embedding safety into regular routines reinforces a culture of safety, showing that it's a shared responsibility, not just a compliance checkbox. It increases risk awareness. Short discussions before meetings help staff recognize everyday hazards and apply situational awareness. Especially valuable in high-risk industries or environments with dispersed or multitasking staff like transit or field operations. It promotes psychological safety and engagement. Starting meetings with the safety moment demonstrates care for staff well-being, which in turn increases trust and engagement. And it encourages proactive thinking. Brief reminders lead to anticipatory thinking and a mindset of continuous improvement, which are the core principles of the Federal Transit Administration's safety management system. And it also is a low-cost, high-impact activity. It's a no-cost initiative with high potential return in preventing incidents, boosting morale, and reducing long-term liability. That concludes my safety moments.
Thank you very much. So as an announcement, we're going to defer action item 8F, the potential action on GM performance evaluation and compensation, because at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, we'll go back into executive session to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the general manager, and no final action or decision may be made in executive session. If any final action is to be taken, then the board will reconvene in an open session. Yeah? Okay. So that brings us to our oath of office. So now we're going to elect our officers. We'll proceed with the election of officers for the coming term, beginning with the office of president. Nominations are now open for president. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Maria Hinojosa-Pressy to serve as board president.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. We don't need a second, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the vote, the vote of confidence. Are there any other additional nominations for president? Okay. I was telling people, I was like, you never know, there might be a coup. All right, so hearing no further nominations, the nominations for president are now closed. And since there's only one nominee for the office of president, Maria Hinojosa-Pressy, myself, that individual is elected by acclamation. So congratulations to me. There's no conceit in this family, in case anyone was wondering. Okay, so now we'll move on to vice president. And are there any nominations for the office of vice president? Yes?
I'll nominate Ian Davidson for vice president.
Wonderful. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none. So since you are the only nominee for vice president, you're elected by acclamation. So congratulations, Ian Davidson.
Thank you.
Okay, now for the election of secretary. Would anyone like to nominate someone for the position of secretary? And I can nominate Sarah Duncan for secretary. Any other nominations? No? Okay, so since you are the only nominee, you are also elected by acclamation. So congratulations, Sarah Duncan. And then with the election of treasurer, any nominations for our treasurer? Go ahead.
I nominate Sadie Carney to serve as treasurer.
Any other nominations? All right, well, Sadie, being the only nominee, you are elected by acclamation. Congratulations, Sadie Carney. Well, thank you, everyone. So that concludes our election of officers. Now we need to come forward and take our oath of office. So that's fun. So I guess we need to go stand in front of the dais?
Yes.
Okay.
All four?
A little pomp and circumstances.
You can all say it at the same time. That way you don't have to wonder what I said. Okay, so please raise your right hand. Ian, that counts. And repeat after me. I, and state your name one at a time.
Ian Davidson.
Sarah Duncan.
Maria Nobles-Pressy.
Sadie Carney.
Affirm that I will support the Constitution
Affirm that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and laws of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and that I will faithfully perform my duties
and I will faithfully perform my duties
as, and then please state your position one at a time,
As Vice President.
as secretary,
As president.
as treasurer,
for the Board of Directors of the Salem Area Mass Transit District,
for the Board of Directors of the Salem Area Mass Transit District,
for the term ending June 30th, 2027,
for the term ending June 30th, 2027,
or until my successor is duly appointed and qualified.
or until my successor is duly appointed and qualified.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, now that we got to have all that fun, this is the moment where I uplift our separate board committees. I'm not going to be making any appointments right now, but this is kind of like your final call to make any asks or requests, or yeah, if there's anything that you would like to change, anything that you would like to see. As a reminder, we are starting up that finance committee, which will be led by Director Carney as the treasurer.
Oh.
Yeah. You have additional responsibilities now. And so far, I've had only one other person on our board asked to be on it, so that we still have another seat open for that one. Is there anything else that I should cover for our committee appointments? I think that's it. Okay. All right, so that brings us into, well, you know, normally we do like outgoing leadership remarks. Does anybody want to say something? No? Okay. So presentations. General Manager Pollack, our 2025 State Legislative Session Report.
Great, thank you. I'll ask our friends from CFM to please come forward and present the report.
Thank you very much. I'll wait until, there we go. So thank you very much for having us. I'm Dale Penn. I'm the State Affairs Partner at CFM. We have the honor to represent Cherriots in the Capitol. Have done so for many years and very much appreciate both the board and the staff here and the work you do. Makes our jobs a lot easier in the building. So let me see if this works. There we go. This is the agenda for tonight, to talk about the 2025 legislative session, go over the timeline dates, some of the major issues. We'll review the 2025 state legislative agenda, which this board adopted, I think back in January or December, right before the legislative session. We'll cover probably the bulk of our time on the transportation package because of its significant impact on transit and transportation issues around the state, what's going on over the next few weeks in response to the failure of the transportation package in session, and then talk about bills of interest for Cherriots, as well as just a little bit talk about interim plans and special sessions. So very quickly, this is your team. Waylon and I do the bulk of the work for Cherriots in the Capitol, but we have a 5-person team in Salem for CFM. Our federal team also has represents you at the federal level with probably 6 or 7 people. I believe Kirby is traditionally the one who comes and gives presentations on that updates. So the 2025 legislative session. Started in late January. Our long sessions are constitutionally limited to 160 days, and we took almost all of them this session. I think we got out of there 2 days early on June 27th. The session was unique in a lot of different ways. Leadership changes over the last year plus meant new faces and new leaders in the building making decisions and setting the tone and tenor. We had a supermajority for Democratic electeds in both chambers, and that creates opportunities and challenges, as we saw this session. There was a historic number of bills this session with roughly 3,500, which we never have seen before, that many, and that creates a lot of logistical problems, both for lobbyists, for stakeholders, and also for staff in the building who have to write those bills and then write amendments and whatnot. So that created some challenges during session. There was even discussion around limiting the number of bills in future sessions, which as a lobbyist I would be perfectly happy with, but I don't make the decisions. So one of the more important dates in our legislative session was May 14th, when we received the final quarterly economic forecast, which the legislators utilize to build out their biennial or 2-year budgets. And this is important because this economic forecast on the 14th is how much money they have to work with, or how much they think they'll have to work with. And they base all of their decisions, not only just how much each agency will get, but also the bonding authority that they have, and it really sets the tone for final negotiations in session. There's some horse trading that usually happens at the end of session, and that is challenged when, in our case, we saw significantly fewer resources available for this and future biennium released in this economic forecast, to the tune of somewhere around $800 million. There's also the specter that the economists indicated that we're looking at maybe a 25% chance of a recession, which creates its own problems. How much do you set aside in a rainy day fund versus how much do you spend now to alleviate access to vital services like Medicaid or transit? So there was a lot of concern and frustration at the end of session because of that, and that created increased challenges working between parties and working among stakeholders to get out of the building, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Some of the major issues, I'm not going to dive into the transportation package now, we've got a whole section on that later, but wildfire costs, healthcare, Medicaid, behavioral health, always perennial issues. And then on top of that, logistically, we've continued to be challenged by the Capitol reconstruction project, which we're very excited to have hopefully finished in the next few months. But over the last several years, including through the pandemic, we've been operating with a skeleton crew there in the building. Limited amounts of space, which creates challenges of a variety of factors. Parking is a major issue, which here at Cherriots, you and us, we've tried to work on for years. But that is a massive problem when a vast majority of the spaces around the Capitol are taken up by the workers, which they need to work there. But that creates real challenges for public engagement when you can't bring a large number of people to the building to advocate on issues. So that continues to be a problem. It will be a problem through pretty much the end of this year, and hopefully starting next year we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel and be able to move forward. There we go. So this is just a quick slide to go over our, or your adopted state legislative agenda that Waylon and I presented and the board debated and adopted earlier this year. Number one remains preserving, maintaining, and enhancing public transportation investments, keeping our eye out for opportunities this legislative cycle that really focused on the transportation package, which we spent the bulk of our time lobbying in support of and advocating for transit in that package. Some of the other issues that we keep as high priority, monitoring any kind of investment opportunities for zero-emission vehicles, investments in footpaths and bicycle trails, as well as keeping an eye on regional passenger rail legislation and conversations. And the last thing I'll mention about the agenda, we work very closely with the fellow lobbyists from the transit community, stakeholders, and the Oregon Transit Association to implement this and their larger OTA agenda. So we work very well with them, and the vast majority of issues we all agree upon and work really well together on. So I'm going to turn it to Waylon here, talk a little bit about the transportation package and answer any questions. And feel free to ask questions as we're going.
Yes, feel free to interrupt me as we get going. I'm happy to take your questions. So the most important and pressing issue for Cherriots in 2025, in my view, was the transportation investment package and ensuring that any package that moved forward contained increased investments for transit. And another way to say that is if you receive STIF funds today, we wanted to make sure that that number went up for every transit provider in the state that's reliant on that revenue source. The original goal of this transportation package when lawmakers started cobbling it together was maintenance and preservation and safety. They were saying things like back to the basics and keeping it small and not investing in big expansions and shiny new objects and new mega projects. That was sort of the intent or the crux of the bill. Nonetheless, transit was considered an absolutely crucial component of that, both because it falls into that maintenance and sort of transportation system, but it also is really key for securing the vote count was going to be there at the floor. And we know we had a lot of progressive Democrats that thought transit was one of the most important facets of the package, so we can assure you that it was in there and in the package at every iteration at some level. At some points, it was released early on at 0.008. We can get into the dollars and cents. At its peak, it was 0.3%, and so it sort of fluctuated between those 2 points in time. And it was front and center at every single roadshow hearing, every legislative hearing or forum or opportunity that we had. And I will say that when we did that pre-session roadshow and kicked that off, support for transit was vocal at every single venue, and pushback was sparse. There wasn't a lot of folks in the crowd saying that shouting you down, saying we don't agree with that. It was a general consensus kind of talking point across all the different venues that transit was critically important. And in all those communities, people were standing up and saying, we're underfunded and we need more here, and this works for our community. So it was an organic, strong message at every venue. Originally, the package, like I said, contained a disappointing 0.008. And when we talk about these things in the decimals and get lost in kind of the numbers, just know that when I say something like 0.1 or 1/10, what I mean is 1 penny out of every $10 an employee earns. That's the rate that we're really talking about here, and it's easy to get lost in the decimals. So when it came in, we currently today have a 0.01 rate, or that 1 penny out of every $10. It was contemplated to not quite double it in the first iteration of the package, but to just almost get it to double the current rate. And that was considered not enough by a lot of Democrats and others that were pushing at the time for something more like 0.5, something really transformational statewide. And so that was where the push and pull started. And I will also say now that Cherriots' leadership was phenomenal and participated in all of these things that I'm describing. A constant presence in the Capitol during session, advocating alongside Dale and myself, alongside Oregon Transportation Association members, Transit Association members, excuse me, and others. Special shout out to General Manager Alan Pollock and Board President Maria Hinojosa-Pressy for appearing multiple times and testifying in support of transit. Your efforts were appreciated, and I know that lawmakers saw and heard and appreciated that local voice showing up routinely and reliably.
And your writers as well. You had a couple amazing writers who can come out and voiced their support for issues. So you did a great job.
And sometimes it's hard to grab a writer from across the state. And so you're here in Salem and you stepped up. So thank you, and we saw that and appreciated it. For this session and this bill, it's also sort of easy to get lost in all the different details. There were a lot of different amendments. And if you ask somebody what they thought about the transportation package 2 weeks before the end of session versus the last day of session, we were probably talking past one another, talking about different amendments. But I think it's worth saying that we were expecting bills and bill language early on in the session. That came very late. We got a lot of PDFs and a lot of frameworks and a lot of summaries, and that's not the real thing. It's a substitute, and you're really guessing and kind of grasping at straws and trying your best to advocate in the dark, but you don't have the bill language, and that was a problem, and that did have an impact on the final process. But I think it's worth focusing on the last viable transportation package that we saw in the form of the -28 amendment. That's what the last real big hurrah that they brought, and it got as close to the finish line as it could have with this framework. It was a slimmed down framework that reduced the size to roughly about $1 billion instead of tens of billion dollars over a long term, and that's what the original 2025 House bill would have done. It eliminated a phased-in 15-cent gas tax that would have been indexed to inflation, and instead just put in a flat 12-cent gas tax, so it came down a little bit. It scrapped a new vehicle transfer tax and other new vehicle fees that were controversial. Instead, just increased the privilege tax up to 2.25%, which would make us closer to other states that just have sales taxes on new vehicles, but that's how that would essentially function. It also retained the payroll tax increase to transit. This bill I'm talking about, it did go all the way up to that 0.3 rate, 3 pennies out of every $10 earned, but it would have phased and moved those goalposts out into the out years to where we wouldn't have seen that full implementation until 2030, that full 3/10. So when we talk about the rates, those had a habit of changing through the session, and then the implementation dates was another lever that lawmakers could sort of play with, and so that changed quite a bit as well. Bicycle tax got folded into a general privilege tax or a sales tax. They also kept a bunch of core reforms that they had through the session, like a mandatory EV RUC or road user charge for electric vehicles and hybrids, a diesel tax alignment, weight mile simplification, and enhanced ODOT audits and accountability. So just a bunch of small little tasks to tackle. No, honestly, it felt almost insurmountable, the amount of complex topics they were tackling all in one bill. As I say them out loud, it's more obvious. This version was viewed as a compromise in quotes if you talk to certain folks on certain sides of the aisle, but they believe that it maintained the structural reforms but scaled back the big headline grabbing tax increases that we had seen kind of towards the tail end of session. The -28, we don't need to get too far into the weeds on it because it collapsed under its own weight on June 27th. Key Democrats withdrew their support over different reasons, but there was diminished scope, lingering fiscal uncertainties. There were process objections across the board that some felt they just weren't included enough in the process throughout. There was a dramatic ending, despite Democrats wielding double supermajorities in each chamber. They really couldn't get it together. They had deep divisions in their own ranks that emerged, and some were concerned about the tax burden amidst the current affordability concerns they were hearing from their constituents that the rates being contemplated were too much. The spending distribution, the lack of time to vet the bill, the policy process complaints were there. Republicans, for their part, remained just about uniformly opposed the entire time, and there weren't a lot of defectors that were willing to help with the vote count. And then at the very end, even some Democrats peeled off, and they sent the thing back to committee. So the House Bill 2025 that I've just spent a bunch of time talking about basically was sent back to committee and scuttled. And the governor then swooped in and made a last-ditch effort to try to bring her own bill, House Bill 3402, which would have just been a 3-cent gas tax increase to essentially swoop in and try to preserve a bunch of jobs, union jobs, sitting there at ODOT. And so this 3 cents was aimed at, can we at least stabilize the ledger, live to fight another day, not do mass layoffs? Of course, that didn't work. With no funding bill passed in the form of 3404 or House Bill 2025, ODOT is now faced with layoffs. Those are happening as we speak. And what we had first heard was that the nature of the layoffs would be maybe tied to the color of money that funded your position, but we're finding that that's not necessarily the case. Given the seniority model and some of the employment agreements inside of the department, we're probably going to see some pretty stark cuts to the public transit division, which is, to be frank, pretty devastating because they were operating at a bit of a skeleton crew over the years, have made efforts to restaff that division back up, and now those are the least senior people in some circumstances, and so they may find themselves on the layoff list, and it's unfortunate. So for next steps, and we can talk at length about any of these next steps, What we're hearing now is that the governor has called for a special session. You've probably seen the headlines that in August 29th, Friday, August 29th, we'll be convening the legislature again for a special session on transportation, specifically for this exact issue. It's not going to be a House Bill 2025 Part 2, where we go for big stuff. We're not swinging for the fences. We're not building mega projects. This is going to be a small, pared down, short-term fix. They're calling it a Band-Aid bill, sort of informally, because it's a short-term fix to long-term solutions. And this leaves the door open to come back and do maybe another full-throated transportation package in, say, 2027. But to prevent layoffs now and put the Band-Aid on, they are proposing, what we know now, a 6 cents gas tax increase, transit increases to 2/10, not the 3, but still an increase, a doubling from the current rate. There are ODOT accountability changes. Weight and mile simplification, I just heard today, will occur, although that was out as of yesterday, so there's still some changes. Repealing old tolling references that did cause some controversy at the last minute there. Updating the HCAS methodology, which we have to do. And then that mandatory road user charging for EVs is still in there. It just looks like they're going to consider pushing those dates out to maybe the 27, 28 timeframe, but still seems to be in the framework we've seen. I just gave you a lot to unpack, but I'm happy to pause there, answer any questions you have about the session, the various bill iterations, counter proposals, drama, whatever you'd like.
And a lot can happen between now and the 29th of August. We believe that the governor has the votes to actually have quorum, but we don't know for certain. And there's a lot of daylight between now and the 29th. So there's going to be daily negotiations and behind-the-scenes conversations as well as public ones over the next 30-plus days.
I think we can keep going and we can do the
Okay.
questions at the
Okay,
end.
no problem. All right, well, the next section I will try to keep as brief as possible. Many of these bills of interest we talk about at length in our end-of-session report, which we've submitted. We can talk a little bit about some of these. For example, 3453, the West Side Express Service Expansion Bill. We were supportive of that. Unfortunately, this, similar to previous sessions, did not move forward, but would have kickstarted again a conversation around facilitating that long discussed extension of the West Commuter Rail Line to Salem, effectively at the Keizer Station bus stop that you guys have there, and then as well as allowing some intergovernmental coordination to occur. So unfortunately, that failed. I can easily see this being a continued conversation and one we should be very conscious of and working with our legislative champions to continue to meet with Wilsonville and TriMet and other advocates around this issue. One of the perennial issues on your 2025 agenda that is represented here very clearly is Senate Bill 160 and 2795. So as we've talked about, after we passed, or after the 2017 package was passed, that next year, 2018, there was already an attempt by legislators to try to sweep some of that transit funding to utilize it for other means. And so we always have to be very careful about the sweeping of the funds, but also the mechanisms itself. And both of those bills, Senate Bill 160 would have been a full STIF repeal, and then the 2795 would have legislatively changed the qualified entity distribution model. And one thing I'll keep in mind is whether there needs to be changes to the QE process, ODOT is hosting a stakeholder conversation about that right now. So I think legislators, when informed of that, were very interested in letting that play out to see if there are any changes, and Cherriots and OTA and others are participating in that process as well. Senate Bill 1124, this is an issue that pops up once in a while. Over the last several sessions, it's come back, expanding the definition of public safety officers to include certain transit employees, and then expanding the scope of felony level penalties for assaulting those workers. So it's one that we were supportive of, led by TriMet mainly, but it still did not get across the finish line either. The rest of these, I'll just kind of see if there are any questions and then we can move on and answer any questions in general about the presentation of materials. All right, I think that is it, if it's going to move forward. Let's see. There we go. Thank you. Are there any questions or anything we can dive further into?
Any questions? Yes, Director Holmstrom.
Real quick about House Bill 3453, that didn't move out of the Joint Transportation Committees. They moved that forward and then just kind of died in Ways and Means. Is that a good sign?
So
happened?
it has, I think this is the second time that it's moved out of committee and died in Ways and Means. I think the last iteration had a fiscal of somewhere around $250,000 for a study that the original iteration, the original bill 1 or 2 years ago would have had Cherriots implement that, receive the money, and then seek a study. I think it's a good sign because the policy conversation, there's no real concern there from what we've seen. It's really just about identifying the funding source and securing that. That may be something that Representative Mannix, who's a big champion of that issue, can pull some strings over the next year or two and potentially bring this bill back and get it funded.
Okay. Director Navarro?
Yeah. Thank you. So you said we could talk about gossip, sentiment, language that we had heard around the building. There was some talk in the legislature that legislators felt excluded from the conversations regarding the transportation package. An example was that of that is how language for that transportation package wasn't released until late in the session. And legislators who spoke out against that language were even removed from committees because of that, speaking out against it. Do you anticipate that legislators are going to be able to overcome that issue during this special session? And it sounds like you mentioned that the governor's proposed bill is a Band-Aid, which could potentially overcome those issues. But if so, do you think that this still might impact the short session and conversations around transportation?
So to answer that last question, yes. I think that's the general fear that I think all of the stakeholders, whether it's transit or anyone, or local governments who want to see increasing the gas tax or some other revenue source so that they can get more money to fix roads and bridges around their areas. No matter what, I think there's a general concern about passing a Band-Aid bill and removing the incentive or the push to move forward with something grander. We hope that doesn't happen, and it's going to be incumbent upon stakeholders from every industry to continue to light a fire and push forward on a more robust transportation package that truly addresses all the needs. This Band-Aid fix bill is really not going to, it's going to help certain districts and entities manage, preserve existing service, but some are still going to have to make cuts. And so there's going to need to be a conversation about more robust spending. In regards to the rumors of or the challenges that the bill faced getting across the finish line, you're absolutely right. There was significant concern raised, whether it was from the total dollar figure of the full package or the fact that many folks, including stakeholders, may not have seen language until June. And that is, I think, in order to move forward, I think that needs to change. I don't know what the right solution is, but one could have been releasing, gathering all the data that you had from every stakeholder and every interested party early on and saying, okay, in order to address all of your concerns, this bill would have been huge. Here's what it would look like. And then start negotiating at that point over a long period of time. People would have probably felt a little more engaged. And so that's a challenge moving forward that leadership on the Joint Committee on Transportation, as well as in the building in general, will have to address if they hope to get broad, bipartisan, bicameral support for the next iteration that moves forward. But it was a very challenging issue this time.
I think it'd be fair to say the main long session is also complicated by those other 3,500 bills that were floating out there. And a true transportation-focused special session where you've cleared the docket of all other considerations, grabbed all these people and said, you have to get a quorum and pass this. I think that's a more laser-focused approach. And to their credit, I'm being extra diplomatic, they have released another framework in advance of the special session, so they've maybe begun that bargaining phase. Even more beneficial would be bill language as soon as possible, and then I think folks would really be able to get into even more deep negotiations. And hopefully they've learned from some of these missteps, but also have a different environment they're coming into, and they don't have all those other bills and budgets on their plate.
Awesome, thank you.
Director Carney?
Thank you, President Enojo's Pressy. We've heard a lot about the ODOT layoffs, and you mentioned that the Public Transportation Division. Do you know if the impact on ODOT's budget removed the position authority or just the funding for the positions? Because I'm trying to sort of imagine it through like the state agency budgeting process. So if you could shed any light on that.
I believe it was a combination. They were holding open several hundred positions. They're a big agency, and they hold open all these extra positions all the time. Those were closed down, and then there were actual layoffs and cuts that happened, an additional several hundred on top of that. And so I think the combined number we saw early on was like 700 impacted employees, and we were very confused what that breakdown looked like. And it was some combination of that.
I will say that for the public transit, or the public transit division in ODOT, I think is generally concerned, as Waylon mentioned, the hierarchy of the individuals, their tenure and whatnot has a significant impact. And what we're hearing is that they may have some people slide into jobs in order to, because of seniority that they've never done before. And now you've got to train these people up, and already a skeletal crew. So we know that there are really real jobs being eliminated, but also the reduction of open jobs. And it's going to be, I think, a real challenge over the next few months. So even if the bill passes, this Band-Aid bill passes, I think there's still going to be a lot of disruption in the agency in all of the program areas, not just transit.
Thank you. And then one more question. The special session on August 29th, that's a Friday.
It's a Friday before a holiday weekend.
Friday before a holiday week, are people gonna stay up all night if they need to, or is it just
I
like
think our
you got 8
spouses
hours?
already hate us enough for session, and now this is gonna be even worse. I think they have a real problem. It's a great question with people going away on Saturday. I think there was a general interest from leadership to try, or from the governor's office, right after the session ended, to try to pull a special session together right away, like the next week. And one of the things they had to deal with is that there were so many people out on vacation already. And I think they're going to have that same problem if they think that they're going to push a special session to Saturday or Sunday. They may run into that problem, just the fact that people are gone Friday. But they need 40 representatives, and they need 20 senators to show up for quorum. And that's, I'm sure, part of all the negotiation happening right now. And if they can't find that, they may not know that until the week before, the week of special session, and they may push it out. I don't know.
For what it's worth, if everything goes right, a special session should technically take that Friday. So maybe they know what they're doing, and they've got the plan.
Okay, I'm going to go with Director Laura Midkiff and then Director Davidson.
Thank you for your presentation. Waylon, I don't think your diplomacy is merited. I have no problem saying this is very embarrassing for our state, and it falls on their work that they were supposed to be doing in service of the state. And they don't win any pity party from me. That being said, the interim period before the special session, what role will you all play, and what role might we play? Because other than for all the reasons you just mentioned, I have very little confidence that this is going to go well. So how can we be helpful?
I think one of the first things that was very impactful during the interim the participation from both Cherriots, the board members, the staff, the larger networks that we participate in, and the transit advocates that are out there telling that story, talking to your senator and your representative, talking to your lawmakers and letting them know your involvement on this, telling real stories that apply faces and humans to the services that you're providing, and getting your lawmaker to know that when they sign on the line and they cast their vote for a massive transportation bill, it's not just a tax vote that they're up for re-election, but they're providing real core services to real people in your community that are going to get groceries, they're going to the VA, they're going to the hospital, they're going to whatever, right? Those, I think, are the things that ground lawmakers in the real rooted work they're doing and the important votes they're taking. And the sober tone you're taking right now and the way you would approach your legislator would have an impact on them. And I know that when you have those conversations, they do move the needle and the dial. They hear from Dale and I a lot. We're your contracted representatives, and they hear from us all the time. When it gets to the next level and they hear from this group and the larger arms of the Cherriots organization, I think that's where we start to have even more impact. Do you have a lot of work to do on this group of your local legislators? Not as much, because they're pretty fantastic. You've met a lot of those, and they go to bat for you. But there's 90 of them in there, and they all need work, and they all need a better understanding of how critical the STIF translates into real services for real people in their districts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think a key component of when we passed the 2017 package was Cherriots' voice in the building. And you had a tactile reason for why the STIF was so important: weekend evening service. You had individuals, riders, who went up there and said, yeah, this is a tax increase on me, but I need this service, and 1 penny for every $10, I can deal with that, because the service is so very important. And it really is a service, and that is one of the narrative components that we struggle with, is to share with people, legislators, the public, that what you provide here is a public good. It's a public service. It's not just a point-to-point ride in an Uber or a Lyft. As great as those options are, this is a public service. And turning our talking points and our data into real faces and stories is exactly what gets across the finish line.
Director Davidson?
Thank you, President. I have a couple of questions and maybe a few comments. One thing that I of course noticed was that, particularly from the party in the super minority, there was a lot of discussion around core mission, of what ODOT's core mission should be. And I know certain members of the majority party, they made proposals to create either a rail department or a rail and public transit department. And I was initially somewhat skeptical of that proposal, but then I kept on hearing core mission, core mission, core mission. And I guess and feel free to punt this question, but I wonder whether that proposal has more merit, given this ongoing refrain of core mission that presumably ODOT should be focused on X, not Y.
Thank you for the great question, Director Davidson. I think the core mission thing is an interesting phrase, because ODOT is a multimodal agency, and their core mission is to provide safe, reliable transportation services to all of Oregonians, right? And so I think when you hear core mission, you're hearing one particular party say, I think the core mission of ODOT should be, maybe it's a little bit of an Old Testament core mission, paving roads and making 5-lane highways. That's what core mission might translate to in that particular time and space. And then maybe they're doing that's just their way of trying to advocate to the rest of their committee and saying, you all need to get on my bandwagon here because the core mission is paving roads. And all of this transit talk is out of scope. Mm-hmm. But there were plenty in the committee, plenty in the public that pushed back on that and said, you're a multimodal agency. Core mission isn't just paving roads. We're not the 1945 ODOT, 2025 ODOT. And I think there's a healthy amount of pushback. And that's what you're seeing, is that every iteration of this, they didn't sweep STIF funds to go backfill the highway fund. They didn't do some of those out there ideas. They kept with the core tenets of it, and transit's been in there all along. So I didn't take it as that seriously. We were concerned, and we got into defensive crouch when we started hearing those things, but we didn't think it had the political appetite inside the 90 members to really support that.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that is I loved that response, because ODOT's core mission one perspective from the minority party in this case, or some from the minority party, argue that maybe it should pare back transit and use the money for other things. But the road show that we've talked about previously, I think there were 16 stops around the state, urban and rural, and universally everywhere, transit was the biggest voice in all of those hearings. So outside of party and geographic differences, the majority of people around the state said that transit is a key component of what this package and ODOT really should be doing. Invest in it. We need more of it. And you're hearing that from your riders here in an urban center in Salem, but also in the surrounding areas. And we're hearing it everywhere. So it should be a key component. And I think legislators have heard that loud and clear.
I'll add just one more little piece of tidbit here is that ODOT didn't have a really great session in the media. They were getting kind of a bad headline every other week, and it was tough on them, and some of those were well-earned, and so they had accountability and perception issues all along. So I think when you say ODOT needs to stick to its core mission, or someone might say that, or someone might say we should stand up a rail division, I think what they're saying is maybe ODOT's doing too much and not doing all of it well enough. And so narrowly focusing their energy would make them a better, more efficient organization. A lot of us would say that they're just under-resourced in key areas and they just need those resources to flow, and then we'd see them hit the pitching. So it's definitely up for debate, but a good question, I think.
Great, thank you for that. On that note, particularly the comments around, what a portion of the minority party might say versus what, a sizable contingent of the majority party would say. I keep going back to the bills of interest, and Senate Bill 160, of course, was submitted pre-session by Senator Meek, who is, of course, a Democrat from the Portland area. Do you have any insight on why he submitted that? Was that a constituent bill? Because, to be perfectly candid, that is deeply troubling to me, that it wasn't just like a reduction, it was just a straight up, we're eliminating stiff.
Yeah, and it's a great question, Director Davidson. I don't want to get up here and speak on behalf of Senator Meek. I wouldn't do that. So I don't know whether that was straight constituent bill. I do know that he introduced it, but then there was no pressure from his office to move this hard. Okay. So I think the Oregon Transit Association, the lobbyists, all of us who worked on these issues together, I think raised serious concerns around what it would accomplish if even we had this conversation, and what it would say around transit investments. And there was no significant push to move that forward. And his office has been very amenable to conversations on this, as well as the other representative who introduced 2795 as well.
That's encouraging to hear, and I'm very happy to hear that as transit is able to communicate the value, that people are able to hear that. That's wonderful.
You're right, and these bills that we see them come up at the beginning of every session. We'll see some of them again in January for the next short session. We are very quick to identify those and work with our transit advocates to have quick, early on and repeated conversations around education, around why these kind of things may be problematic.
Great.
And there's been broad support from leadership, and both on the Joint Committee on Transportation and leadership in general, to help us on that too.
Wonderful. The last thing, and I guess this is just a comment, I'll note that on the West Commuter Rail expansion, when I read through the House Bill 2025, the -28, I noted that it was embedded in there actually as included in that. So I think perhaps the leadership change at the the Joint Committee may have prompted that, or I'm not entirely sure, but that was very encouraging that, ultimately the bill didn't become law, but progress is progress. So.
Well, I think a certain representative was able to potentially do some conversations around the importance of that inclusion, and see that in there.
I love our local legislators.
That's exactly right.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the public comment portion meeting of our agenda. And as a reminder, we do ask folks to keep their comments to about 3.5 minutes if possible. And the first person I have up for public comment is Michael Burke. Hello.
Well, I guess I should say congratulations to everyone who was elected today or appointed. And so I would like to address President Presley, directors of the board, General Manager Alan Pollock. Greetings from ATU 757. I am Michael Burke, the ATU Executive Officer for Salem-Cherriots. I'm here tonight to speak in favor for ratifying the collective bargaining agreement. Cherriots and ATU 757 have a long history together shaping transit for our community. Our cooperative endeavors have enhanced this vital service. The vote taken by the ATU membership was 93% in favor of adoption of the proposed contract. The road ahead for transit will have considerable challenges. You're speaking of many of those tonight. Concerning transit, the current federal administration has emphasized a change in priorities over the last administration. The emerging technologies may provide helpful benefits to offer more service with fewer resources. ATU 757 is a committed partner for transit, and we look forward to meeting the industry's challenges and advancing the service to our community. While fixed route is ready to move forward, we are hopeful that paratransit and regional routes will conclude negotiations and join us soon. We look forward to continuing our work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and next up is Tyler McCulley.
Hello, guys and ladies. I just wanted to add a few things that, in addition to money for transit, I think a huge component of that is making it "quote unquote" cost prohibitive to drive or earn back your responsibility / privilege, not right, for those that use it irresponsibly, aka DUI, distracted driving. I don't know where the money comes from for enforcement, but if the people that are responsible for holding the drivers accountable would fine them, do things like that, people would start paying attention, being on their phone less. I think quite simply, driver's education, high school, middle school, part of that should be even guided bus riding or getting on bike. And again, to earn your license back, maybe that should become mandatory. Those type of things should become mandatory. Cherriots in general has great training for their drivers. I do not for a second think that you grab an average private citizen off the street and force them to do the schooling part of what it takes to become a bus driver. I think most of them would fail within a very short period of time. But yeah, I think it's BS that people can have a DUI and they get like 3 strikes before their license is revoked for life or whatever. We need to bring back capital punishment for those people that are killed by drunk drivers. You see it, quote, all the time in the news, but it seems like they get slaps on the wrist. It stuns me how we live in a society where everybody's pointing the finger or looking at someone else's wrongs judging them for it, and then when somebody's trying to turn their life around or be independent, they, you know, especially low income or marginalized individuals, it's like, I just know it's a matter of time before I'm no longer here because of another driver. And I think there's a time and place for it to stop. And we're in not a huge city, but it's big enough that it's dangerous out there. So anyway, you guys drive safe, travel safe, and stay cool.
Thank you very much. Okay, I don't believe we have any other public comment, either virtually or in person, so that moves us to our consent calendar. Is there an item of the consent calendar that any board member would like to pull? If not, can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
All right, motion.
Second.
And a second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. This will bring us to our action items, and we'll start off with our preliminary FY 2025 financial report. General Manager?
I'll ask Chief LaRue to please come forward and present the report.
Good evening, President Hinojosa Pressy and members of the board. Tonight, I am here to present the estimated financial statements for the fiscal year 2025, which is required by law to present to the governing board within 30 days of the fiscal year end. To comply, we have prepared our preliminary results. Audited results will be prepared when the independent audit work has been completed. Please keep in mind that this is a preliminary report, so some transactions and adjustments have not yet been made. On page 26 through page 28 of your board packet, you will find the detail for your review, but we will move ahead to page 29 where you'll find the annual summary. The first section shows our audits of general health for the entire year. There is quite a lengthy list ranging from financial audits and associated reviews, FTA triennial review, National Transit Database review, ODOT compliance reviews, including single audit reviews and agreed upon procedures. All of our audits this year were completed successfully with no findings and within required timelines. As a reminder, we received our 12th consecutive Excellence in Financial Reporting Award in FY25. On page 30, of the estimated financial overview, you will see a breakout of financial performance by fund. The general fund shows revenues being over budget at 104%, and the largest drivers for this positive performance is passenger fares, STIF funding, and Oregon State in lieu being higher than budget. For general fund expenses, we have estimated that our expenses will be approximately 74% of the budget, with all of the divisions anticipated to be within budget as is required. For Transportation Programs Fund revenues, we have estimated revenues to be at approximately 61%. The reason for this being much lower than budget is because we have another resource to help cover the expenses for FY25, which is that we are able to use reserved working capital that resides in this fund. If we had needed to transfer from the general fund, we would have shown higher revenues in this fund, but higher expenses in the general fund. So it just moves from one directly into the other. The expenses estimated for the Transportation Programs Fund are anticipated to be at 87%, meaning a 13% savings from the budget. The capital revenues are estimated to be at 11% of budget, but that's because we have many carryover projects, some very, very large projects that span the years into FY26. And then the expenses are estimated to be at 10% of the budget, right in line with the revenues. With a couple of our larger projects this year that were completed are the Intelligent Transportation System project and also replacement of vehicle hoists. For the FY25 strategic plan, we have designated funds for specific tactics. To share the Cherriots story, we have paid a little over $183,000 on a public relations contract. The Cherriots Intelligent Transportation System is fully implemented, and the cost for just FY25 is about $1.5 million. The comprehensive operational analysis project, at the time that this report was written, was about $5,000, but as I said, these are estimates, and numbers are still coming in for us to record. And just as of today, $77,000 crossed my desk for that project. So it has moved significantly farther than that $5,000 would indicate. To improve the safety and security, we are working on the Dell Web Gate and Fence project, in which we spent a little over $50,000 in FY25. And we also developed a long-range financial plan using a consultant at just shy of $42,000 for the year. Staff recommends the board accept the FY25 preliminary year-end financial report as presented. May I answer any questions?
Any questions from our board members? No? If not, then I will take a motion on this item.
I move that the board accept the fiscal year 2025 preliminary year-end financial report as presented.
Seconded.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? No? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think, great job. I think, you and your staff should be very proud of the work that you've done. And, this is one of the only times where straight Fs is a good thing. So I think, we're all proud of the fact that, all the external folks taking a look at what we've been able to accomplish at the district, and they haven't seen any problems at all. It's a testament to your work. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for calling that out. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. All right, and I believe that you're back up for our ODOT compliance monitoring program results.
Now I get the honor to talk about our Oregon Department of Transportation Compliance Monitoring Program and results. The district recently participated in this monitoring program, which assesses how transit agencies in Oregon meet the many compliance requirements imposed as required in the State Management Plan for Public Transportation. Each compliance review determines how the agency's management is complying with federal and state laws, rules, requirements, and regulations, with the overall goal to improve compliance, but also strengthening management's abilities. ODOT contracted with RLS and Associates to conduct the review, beginning with data collection in March and ending with a day of in-person review on May 8th, 2025. Participants included Amy Edelman of RLS and Associates, Arla Miller and David Campbell of ODOT, and many, many staff members. It takes the entire district for these reviews that we go through. On page 33 of your board packet, you will find the written compliance report. The district is proud to announce that there are no findings as a result of this review. The last review was in 2021, of which there were also no findings. Some of the specific areas that are reviewed are the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, or STIF, requirements for STIF-funded assets, financial management, Americans with Disabilities Act, and monitoring of lower-tier recipients. Staff recommends the board accept the 2025 ODOT compliance report. May I answer any questions?
Do we have any questions? No? Yes, Director Davidson.
How do you do it?
With the wonderful people that work at Cherriots, because it truly is every area that is monitored very closely. So it's each area doing the right thing all the time.
Excellent answer.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I think this is also just a testament to your amazing team. I hope they're well commended for all their work. All right, so I will move that the board accept the 2025 ODOT compliance report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? No? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up is award of contract for fare box replacement.
Thank you. I'll ask Chief Dietz to please come forward and present the report.
Good evening, President Hinojosa-Presti, members of the board. I am here before you tonight to ask, shall the board authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with GenFare LLC for the delivery of a fleet-wide fare collection system and approve a project budget not to exceed $2,515,919. So we conducted a competitive solicitation via FTA guidelines, and we received our responses, and we reviewed them. And really what this project is replacing the fare boxes that are on our local fixed route buses, which also happen to be GenFare. The model is the Odyssey, and it's appropriate because they're way beyond their useful life. They went out of useful life in December of 23 and out of support in December of 2024. And so we've been doing a good job keeping the systems running, taking broken ones and taking usable parts, creating our own parts reserve because there just aren't parts available for these. So it's a long time coming on this project. Our fare boxes are many, many years old. So in review, we reviewed two companies. The Source Evaluation Committee evaluated it, did the initial scoring, pared it down, brought the two finalists in for interviews and demonstrations, and then scored it, as you can see in the memo, how the scores came out. The Source Evaluation Committee determined that GenFare LLC, also the incumbent, was the successful bidder for their new product, which is GenFare Fast Fare is the name of the product. So the staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter a contract with GenFare LLC for the delivery of a fleet-wide fare collection system and approve a project budget not to exceed $2,515,919. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I was going to say, we're going to have a lot of questions here. Director Duncan.
Hopefully not a lot. Thank you, President Hinojosa-Presti. I have a simple question. We've discussed this in work sessions. There's no decision on it, but we've discussed the value of switching from a single ride to like a 2-hour ticket. Would this have the capability to print a 2-hour ticket for a fare if someone were to pay cash for it?
So thank you for the question, Director Duncan. The system is incredibly configurable, so we can configure it to match our fare structure. We would have to adjust our fare structure, which I know we're in conversations about as well. But this system is incredibly robust. It has the capability to do open loop payment, so debit card, credit card, Apple Pay, Google Wallet, and the like. I don't know all of those. But also in conjunction with our UMO system that we have on board the bus.
Very cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think you missed Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. That answers one of my questions. Do we have other questions? Yes, Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojosa-Presti. I'm curious, with this contract for GenFare LLC, along with the replacement, what kind of support comes with that for the 2.5?
So much like any contract that we have with a vendor that provides equipment for us, there's the capital purchase of the product installation and setup. sometimes the first year of warranty, and then there's an extended warranty period that is kind of moved to operating. So we purchase that as a part of this. We would purchase that extended warranty. We already have a really long-standing relationship with GenFair, both software side and hardware side, so we have no reason to believe that that wouldn't continue.
Yes, Director Laura Midkiff.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you partially answered my question, which was going to be, what am I getting for this? It says things like, oh Lord, complete integration with UMO, Catavail, seamless impact, future technology features, but I don't know what any of those things mean. So I think I understood partially that it means, I can take my card, which is wonderful, but can you talk more about exactly what we're getting for this?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Director Laura Midkiff. So integration is a sometimes overused term, but when you look at all of the systems that are on board our buses and what they do and how they communicate, it really is, it integrates with everything that is on that bus. So we will be able to take the fare box information, it will go through our CAD AVL provider. They can true up numbers also with the APC, the automatic passenger counters. Sorry, I'm going to get into my jargon here. So it can really take all of that information and it can support other information, it can validate other information, and it gives us all of those kind of robust reports. Right now we have to do a lot of manual work because of our antiquated hardware. Bring the hardware up to date, software will be also up to date. We will receive a new vault with this purchase, which replaces that antiquated vault. So what is called probing, which means we can get information from the vehicle, can be done through the Wi-Fi. So you don't have to touch it with the wand that we have now. You can still do that, but it can download information via Wi-Fi. The open loop is the big one. We did put that as a requirement as an option in our scope of work. So, we have that option. Right now we have UMO, that we have our cashless fare payment system, but it gives us options in the future for other things. This machine is well advanced to what we are used to today.
So just to clarify, I know the answer to this, but I live in Corvallis, I'm driving to Salem, I park somewhere, I want to get on the bus for the first time. I'm not used to paying fares because I live in Corvallis, and I don't have the app. I can take out my credit card and pay, no problem?
If we turn that feature on, yes.
We should definitely turn that feature on. That should be on all the
and I
time.
did neglect to say, so if you'll allow me, we're also adding these automated fare boxes to our regional system, whereas right now we do not have that. So all of our regional buses will also have these GenFair fare boxes.
And you said if we turn it on, is there a reason why we wouldn't turn it on?
At this moment, we have UMO, and that's kind of the system that we're using for cashless fare.
Right.
We have had conversations with UMO to add open loop payment, but from my understanding, we're not there yet with UMO.
Okay, well, just for the record, I would really like that. That would be really good for us to do. There might be some cost associated with processing those payments that I don't know the details of, but just from a user perspective, that would be wonderful. So I would strongly encourage that you seriously consider that, if not do it if possible. Okay, thank you for entertaining my questions.
So I think my question is also just a point of clarity. So when we replace the fare boxes, are we also going to take out the little UMO card readers because we'll be able to have the UMO card reader in the fare box?
Thank you for the question, President Enos-Presley. No, at this time, the UMO unit, the UMO validator will stay on board the vehicle.
Okay, so, and do we think that like in the future, we would just have like one unit?
I don't have an answer to that question at this time.
Okay. I would also like to petition.
But it's possible, right?
Yeah.
It is possible.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a board decision.
I'm looking at it right now. I Googled it, and it looks like a really complicated version of like what you see going into like a subway system. Because like because it has like the magnetic strip reader for the cards, like the tap, the cash, the change, so, yes, yeah, I see that, and it also has like the little screen, just like our UMO, like, reader, so, yes, I would love if we could eventually just have everything together, because it does, I mean, it's not terrible, but it does feel a little bit clunky that, like, you know, some folks stop here at the bus and then other folks stop all the way over here to be able to like pay for their rides, but this is great. All right, any other questions? Yes, Director Davidson.
Thank you. With open loops, or with open loop payment, will, technically speaking, I recognize that you would have to opt in and a whole, you know, host of like contractual agreements may need to occur, but technically speaking, does this allow for interoperability between different transit districts more easily?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Director Davidson. I don't know the answer to that question. I can answer part of that with the way GenFair handles open loop payment now. I don't fully understand it, but it sounds like it's very, it's less complicated than I have to go open a merchant account at a bank and then I get charged transactions. GenFair has a relationship with Chase Bank, I believe, and we would use that relationship, and all of those transactions are card-based, not name-based. So if I used my Diners Club card from 1974, that it wouldn't recognize that it is Tom's card. It recognizes it, the last four digits of 1234.
Sorry, what were the last four again?
1234. So it is a much more streamlined process. I was really quite impressed when they described that process in the demonstration. I think it would make it a lot easier than if we owned the relationship with charging, making those charges through our bank, but I'll leave that to Denise's fine team to suss that out.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the open loop, the benefits of open loop payment would be for the actual credit card. So if I had a HOP card from Portland or an Orca card from the Seattle area, that doesn't necessarily give me anything, even if I had stored payment on that card.
That's what I understand. I don't have the full answer to that question because it is handled a little bit differently. But we could certainly ask GenFair that question.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with GenFair LLC for the delivery of a fare collection system replacement and approve a project budget amount not to exceed $2,545,919.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second, and as a total aside, that could be a great future voice on our bus announcements. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very
Thank
much. And that will bring us to our next item of approval of asset donation.
Great, thanks. I'll ask our maintenance manager, Zach Leak, to please come forward.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Tonight I come before you to ask the board to authorize a donation of supplies or surplus automotive parts to the Diesel Technologies program at Chemeketa Community College. So over the last year, Cherriots has been very involved in Chemeketa's diesel program. We've helped them out through many activities that they do at the school, and some of the biggest, we've asked them for how we could help them out the most. And their answer was, we need parts to work on, to do testing, set up labs, and to get the students something to work on. And we have some parts that are going to go to scrap, and instead of scrapping them, we would like to donate them to the school to be used for helping the kids learn. So staff recommends the board to approve donations of surplus parts to the Diesel Technologies program at Chemeketa Community College, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Any questions? Director Laura Midkiff?
Thank you. And thank you, Manager Leith, for your presentation. This was a very welcome surprise on my agenda packet the other day when I got it. By the way, Kira always delivers my agenda packet in person. And this is, for 2 years now, this is the first time we actually met at the house. And I was like, whoa, this really does happen, and it really is you, as opposed to some kind of angel that drops off the packet. And I was like, oh, come on in, have some coffee. I know. I don't think she enjoyed it as much as I did, but I was really tickled by it. Anyways, I had a couple questions for you. I'm obviously a lover and supporter of Chemeketa. And I just was wondering what other relationships, you kind of mentioned some of the partnerships you've had this past year, but are there any, say like workforce development opportunities or other partnerships that we could explore beyond this asset donation that's in front of us?
So right now there's me and Ken Craig, who's our trainer in the maintenance department. So we're serving on their advisory board. We've participated in a open house for Chemeketa, so that's when they bring in all the seniors from the high schools. We just did that last June. There was over 300 seniors from high school. They bring them in, come through, we talk to them, they ask us questions about what we look for in a mechanic, what kind of experience we want, what type of things that would help them rise above the other students where we'd want to hire them. We've done mock interviews with them. We sit down, we did that for half a day in their shop. There was 16, I think, other companies out there that came in for that. So it helps the kids know that there's somewhere to go after they're done with school. So it helps them out, gives them a little bit of interview experience, and then kind of know what to look for.
Well, I thank you for doing that. I really do love and celebrate that. And if there's any future things that we could do to support that work, I think I would love to hear about it and be able to support it. I love that. So thank you for doing that.
I see that we have.
So I'd ask Chief Rose maybe to expand on some of the other partnerships that we have actually doing with Chemeketa.
Thank you for that question, Director Laura Midkiff. There's a couple things I'd like to call out. Thing number one is that in fiscal year 2025, we brought Chemeketa in as partner to help our DEI committee formation. So it was an entire 12-week training, and we all received certificates. And then you may recall that we also had a briefer TLDR version for all of you. On the other hand, so thing number two is that we are partnering with them during the registration period for fall term, just to make sure that all the students know what's available to them as it relates to public transportation and where it can take them and how it can be useful, especially those coming from high school and rolling into their freshman year at a community college. So it's simply things that they might not know, and we're really working with that team to make sure that we can get that information into their registration packets. We're definitely plugging the UMO because we want to make sure we get that adoption rate even higher and that engagement higher. So did I address the two that you were thinking?
And then the CDL program. The CDL program.
Oh, yes, in the CDL program.
I can.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead?
Unless you have it.
No, that's okay.
Okay. So we also partner with the Chemeketa's commercial driver's license program to make them aware of potential opportunities at Cherriots for transit operators.
That's great. Thank you, all of you, for answering my question.
Wonderful. Yes, Director Navarro.
Thank you, President Nojas Pressy. I had a question regarding, do we have any data on how many maintenance workers specifically come to us from Chemeketa?
Thank you for the question. So far to date, we've hired 2 of their graduates in our shop right now that are service technicians currently.
And thank you. And a follow-up. So I'm assuming that those maintenance technicians are diesel maintenance technicians because Chemeketa, to my understanding, does not have a renewable energy engineering program. So if we wanted to have those technicians work on electric vehicles, electric buses, they would have to get that training either internally or somewhere else. Is that accurate?
Yes, they do cover multiple things in their program, but it is centered around diesel. And the ones that we've hired are service technicians, so they do service CNG, diesel, and the electrics, and then all the non-revenue regional hauler vehicles. So, and we've trained in-house to get them up to speed and be safe and efficient.
Awesome. Has Chemeketa, sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Has Chemeketa expressed any interest in being pioneers in other alternatives to diesel? And the reason I bring that up, because there was like a recent tour that happened here in Oregon where an individual was collaborating with other colleges to promote plastic diesel. And so this is where they refine used plastic to be able to work in diesel engines. And so, I mean, I would be interested in donating an entire vehicle to Chemeketa if we could like encourage them to champion initiatives like that. But I don't know if there's any interest.
I haven't heard of anything yet. I know with the electrics being so big, and that's kind of a new technology, I'm sure they'll go that route. Kevin, he's the instructor that runs the program. He has mentioned electric vehicles before, and when we did the open house, we brought an electric bus down there for that, and the kids looked at it, and the class looked at it, and Kevin was mentioning that they were trying to do some electric stuff at some point, just not yet.
Awesome, thank you.
Sorry, two things. One, of the 2 hires that came from Chemeketa, what percentage of that constitutes all the staff in that area?
We have 6 service techs right now.
That's a lot. Okay, thank you. And then I am on occasion on calls with the Dean of Agriculture at Chemeketa, and I know at least in that part of the institution, they have been doing a lot of renewable fuel sources as well for agriculture, and kind of electric agriculture, heavy equipment, and we have a lot on the farm that we operate, and we bring it out there and do demonstrations with the students there, and so there may be some, I mean, not really apropos of what we do, but I know there is some parts or pockets of the institution that are interested in investing in that sort of technology, so it would be worth checking out.
They do actually have CNG stuff right now, so they are working on CNG. They have a CNG truck that Daimler donated to them. I don't know if you guys are aware, but we also do within a company called Infinium. We do a lot of oil testing for them, and some of our old engines out of those buses are at Chemeketa right now. They have 6 of those engines that they tear apart and put back together and use those for training purposes as well.
I would.
All right.
I move that the board approve the donation of surplus parts to the Diesel Technologies Program at Chemeketa Community College.
And I'll second.
Wonderful. Any discussion on the motion? Yes, Director Davidson.
As a proud graduate of a community college, I think that this is wonderful, particularly given that our net financial, or the financial impact is that we are losing out on $100 in scrap metal recycling. So I think the net benefit to the community is significantly more than $100, and I wanted to call that out. So thank you for all the work.
Wonderful. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
very much. All right, that brings us to the potential action on labor negotiations.
Thanks. I'll ask Chief Rose to please come forward.
Good evening.
Thank you for fixing that chair.
It's been driving me crazy. Good evening, President Anahos Pressey and members of the board. It is my pleasure to bring forward this agenda item for your approval, which is our successful labor agreement with the Amalgamated Transit Union 757, or ATU for short. If we're being candid, this was a fairly heavy lift, but I want to call out that it was a really collaborative one, and I think we all left the table proud of the outcome. The term period for the agreement is from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028, and all terms of the approved agreement will be retroactive to July 1st, 2025. Negotiating a labor contract is a team sport, and thankfully we have an incredible team. I want to acknowledge that team, so very specifically I'd like to acknowledge Tom Dietz, our Chief Operating Officer, Don Clifford, our Transportation Manager, Zach Leith, who was just up here, our Maintenance Manager, and our Legal Counsel, Adam Collier. I want to acknowledge all of them for their time, their diligence, and professionalism throughout this process. I would also like to thank General Manager Pollack and Deputy General Manager Trimble for their ongoing support and strategic guidance throughout the negotiations. it was absolutely critical, and we're just really, really fortunate to have so much experience, knowledge, and business acumen on our leadership team. I'd also like to extend thanks to our finance and HR staff for their administrative and sometimes sprint style in the middle of the day support. We really needed their help, and they were there for us, and so really, really grateful for that. And of course, special thanks to the ATU team for consistently showing up prepared, engaged, and willing to dig into the tough stuff with us. After 6 sessions, 6 negotiating sessions, we're so very pleased to reach a tentative agreement, which happened on May 30th, 2025, and that agreement was overwhelmingly then ratified by the ATU membership on July 11th, 2025, with 93% voting in favor. From a wage perspective, the agreement includes a 5% increase in the first year, followed by 3.5% increases in both the second and third years. And we also addressed a few other economic items related to role classification tools and shift differentials to ensure fair compensation across the board. In total, we reached agreement on 23 operational articles and jointly created a brand new article, which is now Article 24. I want to thank the ATU for their excellent collaboration and thoughtful perspectives as we work to develop language in that article that reflects both accountability, certainly, but also fairness in the use of electronic systems. And with that, staff recommends that the board approve the 3-year labor agreement with the ATU 757 for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2028. And as always, I'm so happy to take any questions that you might have.
Wonderful. Do we have any questions? Yes, Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojosa-Pressey. When's the last time we got a new article?
I actually don't know. That's a great question, Director Carney. Does anybody have knowledge on that?
Thank you, Director Carney. I don't remember the exact date. It has not been the last 3 negotiations, though, so it's been before that.
Fantastic work. Congratulations on your new article.
Thank you. The team did great.
Okay. All right. I move that the board approve the 3-year labor agreement with ATU 757 for the period of July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2028.
I second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. And then the next item is deferred, as I said at the top of the meeting. So we'll come into our informational reports. So service change briefing for September 2025. General Manager?
Yes, would Service Planning Manager French please come forward?
Good evening, President Hinojosa-Pressey, members of the board. I'm here to present the September 2025 service change briefing. This service change starts September 7th and goes through January 3rd. It's a fairly small service change, but exciting things are happening. The Route 22, we're actually doing some route changes for that and are able, with the Mill Creek Drive being punched all the way through to Deer Park, we're able to serve Corbin University, which they have requested service over the years. The stops along this route have been part of the development that's out there, which we've worked with the developers to include stops throughout this section. The next is Route 5, Center Street. We did some improvements to a stop that we had moved to make it so that it had better access, ADA access. It wasn't compliant, but it was curb-tight sidewalk, but we've actually done improvements with our last group of stop improvements, and we're putting that into service with the service change. On the Route 9, this is another stop that was built with a development, adding a stop closer, providing better access into the industrial area along Cherry Avenue. For schedule adjustments, we've made some additional adjustments to the Route 14 to improve on-time performance. On the regional system, we're making some route adjustments and adding a stop for the Route 10X Woodburn Express or Salem Express and the North Marion County Salem Express. We've operated out of a parking lot in the Bi-Mart parking lot in Woodburn for many years. And we knew that at some point in time, that parking lot, there was a pad that was going to be developed, and that is in the process of being developed. It's probably will not be until spring of next year, but we want to make the move and get it in place so that we're not scrambling to be out of that location. Holidays during this service change, Veterans Day will be operated at Saturday levels. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, we do not provide service, and the lift service will mirror the fixed route service on holidays. And with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? No? Director Davidson?
Yeah, one question actually two questions. For the stop changes, I had previously noted this, community member request, so I'll just flag it here as well. At the intersection of D and Summer, there's a stop on the northwest side that I guess with the proximity of the middle school and the high school, residents have had some issues there, and they would like the stop moved maybe to the south side of D. And so I with stop changes occurring here, I just wanted to flag that. I've mentioned it in an email in the past, but wanted to, I guess, verbalize it here. And then I guess the other thing that I wanted to comment on is the stop spacing. I think that's great, that closing down of bus stops when stop spacing, or a focus on stop spacing. I think sometimes some of our routes have too many stops, and it slows down our buses. And so I'm really looking forward to our comprehensive operational analysis to see if where else maybe we might benefit from closing down select stops. But I'd love to see the results of the COA. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next is our Creating Community Connections project update.
Chief Rose, come on back up.
Well, thank you for having me here again. I am pleased to share that we've hit yet another key momentum point in the Creating Community Connections project. We're now fully in the engagement phase following the launch of our complete tabling experience at community events. So you may recall we had our soft launch in June. Since then, our first official tabling event took place on Friday, July 11th, that Fun Friday. July 11th had a lot going on that day, and it was a clear success. Again, as I say, this builds on our earlier soft launch, but now features fully developed materials, structured activities, and branding signage that will carry forward across all future events. All signage, outreach materials, and activities are ready to go and will continue to be ready to go. Our outreach team is prepped, trained, and really genuinely excited, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And we've designed, again, that consistent, high-quality experience across all events to reinforce the same message and build that recognition over time. Now, before diving into the highlights, I want to extend a sincere thank you to Director Navarro for his suggestion back in February about linking up with CBEL, if it's CBEL, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, and other community-centered events. Insight like that really helps us steer towards partnerships and events like Fun Friday, which, as it turns out, is exactly where we needed to be. So thank you for that. So some highlights from our Fun Friday events on July 11th and also just a couple days ago on July 18th, we connected with just over 300 people of all ages, families, kids, and just curious community members. And what drew them in was our super cute vending machine. So it's only about this big, but as predicted, you know, when we were talking about the thoughtfulness of staff when they were thinking about their families at these events and what would draw someone in, and they were just spot on. So just a lot of kudos to the team. The vending machine, again, is about this big, and it has little containers, or little round containers, spheres, and the kids just loved it. So it was an instant favorite, as I'm sure you can imagine, with the kids and a few nostalgic adults. So the What Type of Writer Are You quiz, which we talked about last time, was a really fun way to personalize the conversation, and that's what people really want, is personalization. And thanks to our outreach staff, namely customer service representatives Martinez and De Jesus Castro, and customer experience specialist McCowan, and outreach representative Karanan, we kept it really inclusive and engaging. So just again, special thanks to them. We want to note that the flyers and QR codes really made it easy to connect to our website and to the survey just right on the spot. We even saw a few folks scan the codes and complete the survey right there at the booths. Interestingly, approximately 30% of those that we made contact with had ridden Cherriots, and so I thought that would be a nice statistic to share with all of you. Most questions that came from our interactions with the community focused on routes near Northgate Park, which shows us that people really are interested, certainly very interested, and they are looking at how service enhancements might impact their daily lives. I'd like to reiterate and reassure you, just as we committed to the Service Enhancement Subcommittee, each event now follows a clear roadmap ensuring that consistency that we're hoping for, such that each visitor, whether they come this week or next month, has a fun, informative, and consistent experience that brings the CCC campaign to life. It's actually 4 C's. Creating Community Connections campaign. Anyway, we're already seeing sparks, signage is up, conversations are happening, and curiosity is turning into connection, and that's really fun to see. So if you're wondering what might be happening next, behind the scenes, we're finalizing the Chamber of Commerce presentation. We're ready for July 31st with members of the executive leadership team helping us refine the data and messaging. We're also tightening up the FAQs for business audiences, clear, compelling, no jargon. Well, mostly no jargon, you know how we love our acronyms. And then on the storytelling front, we've got a cyclist scheduled to film on August 8th, which was actually another suggestion from the board, so thank you yet again. And we're still awaiting Spanish language video contributions from Director Laura Midkiff and Board President Inajos Pressy to round out our collection of voices. Director Davidson.
Yes.
I wanted to thank you for your suggestion regarding the National Night Out. We have it noted for future years. Unfortunately, this year it just simply wasn't in the cards, largely due to staff capacity, because we already had some other items on the books. But we have that down, and we do intend to look into it for future years. And we would just really want to encourage the suggestions coming, because really it's been very helpful. So as the campaign has moved from preparation into engagement and presence, we're maintaining ourselves energized, visible, and fully engaged with the community. Conversations are happening, connections are forming, and we are ready to use what we hear to help shape the final service plan. We, of course, feel like each part is more exciting than the last, but if I had to pick a favorite, it's this. We are out there, we're showing up, and in the words of the esteemed Dr. Fraser Crane, we're listening. So now with that, what questions can I answer for you?
Do we have any questions or comments? Director Navarro?
Thank you, President Inajos Pressy. Do you have a picture of the machine, the vending machine?
Oh,
'Cause I think that We need a picture.
Yes, so we have been taking pictures of the events. I'll see if I can identify one with the vending machine and then make sure the clerk of the board gets it sent out.
Yeah, because I thought it was a big hit. I mean, it definitely stood out. A lot of the other vendors at the most recent CBEL event, sorry, I was talking about the CBEL event. But at the most recent event, like they had other things to attract people to their booths, but you could see that machine from across the way. So it was really awesome.
Thank you. It was very popular. We have already had to restock all the goodies because it was just that popular. So it's nice to hear. Thank you for the feedback.
Well, I'm glad that you asked about the picture, because I was going to get like a very serious voice and say like, I'm disappointed we don't have a picture.
Do better next time.
Or go to the event.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
I guess I just missed you.
All right.
Last Friday.
There's no, I'll talk about it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to our general manager's report. General manager.
Thank you. Just a couple items. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't follow up on Chief Rowe's comments on the negotiation process, and I'd like to offer my thanks to the team, both the Cherriots team and the ATU team, for coming to an amicable agreement that I believe is fair for both the organization and the people. And so I'm very pleased that that is behind us. For those that signed up, don't forget August 2nd is Family Fun Day with the Marion Berries baseball game. Should be a fun evening of activities. I was going to talk about the special session, but our CFM folks did. But I would add that we'll be keeping a close eye through the OTA on any behind-the-scenes development as the offer moves through the process till August 29th. Earlier today, I did email all of you a couple of press releases that went out on some recent activities, one being our TransDash Awards from the recent TransDash Summit, and the other is promoting results of not only our ODOT state compliance review that you heard earlier, but also our FTA triennial review. So those are out there to be shared with people. And I guess I'll wrap it up. So if you look out on the speakers table, you can see a variety of awards. On our left is the TransDash Awards that we received at the TransDash Summit, which included recognition for 3 first places in the competition, 1 second place, and 4 third place awards, which follows up from last year's recognition through the TransDash program. And then on the right is another award, and I'm going to ask Chief Dietz to talk about that since he received that at a workshop last week. So, Chief.
Thank you, General Manager Pollock. Yeah, so last week, Cherriots took quite a group of folks to the Avail, they call it Engage, not a user conference, but it is a user conference, where we get extended training and sessions hearing about other Avail customers and how they use it. And then on the last day of the conference, there was an award ceremony. We had no idea we were winning an award, but we won the Pioneer Writer Award. And this comes because our amazing implementation team pointed out that the GTFS real-time feed to the MyStop app and the Transit app was lagging by as much as 51 seconds, which again means the difference of seeing your bus coming at you or going away. And so when Avail asked their clients, you really haven't said anything, is this a thing? And they said, no, not really, we've just been working around it, but if you can fix it, that would be great. So at our prompting, they fixed it to where like our transit signal priority project is now 1 second or less ping rate. And so this is now rolled out Avail universe-wide, and we received the Pioneer Writer Award for that effort. So kudos to the team.
So feel free after the meeting to stop by and you can check out the recognition awards. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say to that Pioneer Award, I just really appreciate that, how engaged everyone at Cherriots is to make sure that we really do have a great service. So that brings us to our Board of Directors reports. I'm going to start over here with Director Holmstrom.
Thank you. I do not have a report this month.
Wonderful. Director Laura Minkin.
Neither do I, but I will just say that I was going down Wallace today, not on the bus, unfortunately, but there was a cherry lift vehicle going forward, and the back was open and flapping open, and it was all pandemonium was ensuing in Wallace. And I called our customer service and was connected immediately with a real person who actually talked to me and called the lift, and they got it closed. So I really appreciate all of our wraparound services and how responsive our team is. So that constitutes my report of a kind.
Thank you very much. Director Navarro.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just talk a little bit about some happenings in Keizer. National Night Out will be happening August 5th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I try to stay a little bit more active in the Southeast Keizer neighborhood, so we're going to be doing our National Night Out at the Keizer Elks. But there's quite a few different locations that will be doing National Night Out in Keizer. I usually go to like the neighborhood association pages to find out where those are at, because they generally organize those in case you're interested in attending one of those. There is a Claggett Creek wetland enhancement project that's being installed in Keizer between Chemawa Road and Dearborn Avenue in the wetlands that's on the east side of the river. If you're from Keizer, that's where the Cal Park is. And yeah, they're going to be installing this really cool boardwalk, and it's going to be educational. It's going to have an environmental benefit, and it's going to create a public space right behind those apartments that are back there. So I'm pretty excited about Keizer doing that project. And I want to touch on Fun Friday. So we had the C-Bell Fun Friday last week, and as the executive director for a local nonprofit, I got to attend that, and got to see Cherriots, but I had to get my hair cut, so that's probably why I missed you. And so, yeah. There will be another one, though, tomorrow, actually, July 25th, at St. Edward's Catholic Church in Keizer. This will be from 4 to 7:30. If you guys could attend, that would be awesome. I'll be there with the Child Care Coalition advocating for that. And lastly, just for the record, I would have seconded all of your nominations tonight, because you guys are a great team to work with. None of yours, sorry. But yeah, I really appreciate being a part of this board. It's an honor, and you guys are all great leaders, and congratulations.
Thank you. Director Duncan.
Thank you, President Hinojosa Pressy. So we did not have MWAC this month, so I don't have anything for you there. But I do have from the DEI subcommittee. We went over a couple of different things. We discussed Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and for capacity issues and a couple other things, and we decided that instead of doing a full wrap, we are going to do header cards inside the buses, which I'm very excited about. And I'm very passionate about this program, and so we've discussed some other ways to also uplift them. And also just, I want to say here one more time, it's a fantastic program, and we're very lucky to have them in our community. So I really appreciate them reaching out and asking us to be involved in this project. And then on other bus wrap news, unfortunately, a few of our existing wraps are nearing the end of their useful life. This was a bit of an experiment. We sat down and asked, how long do bus wraps last? And we said, I don't know, let's find out. Turns out it's a bit more than a year, which is fantastic. And so we will continue to go through. We won't necessarily see these exact pieces be like what we're featuring next. We've got a whole roster, and hopefully we will circle back around to these particular populations soon. But yeah, at this point we're going to move forward in our list, so you can look forward to some new different communities being celebrated. But I just want to do a big thank you to everybody who's involved in the wraps, and I'm sad to see them go, but at a certain point they are temporary at the end of the day. So. Also, we talked a little bit about Tri-Transit. I know last year we did a bit of an effort to try to get the community and leaders to take the bus. And we're going to kind of transform that a little bit and try to be a bit more organic. And we're going to try to kind of come under the initiative of Choose Cherriots, which is more in line with our current branding. And so in light of that, ironically, I actually had a school board member reach out to me and ask if we could talk about the bus together and maybe do a video. So shout out to Mel Fuller for being a fantastic advocate. And she said that she'd be happy to go after a couple city councilors herself to see if she can't get them to ride the bus with her. So very exciting to see that leadership in our community and commitment from the school board to want to experience what the students experience and make sure that they're being well represented there. So fantastic. Other thing that happened for me this month is I got invited to be on the greeters team for Chamber of Commerce. For those of you that don't know, Chamber of Commerce has a networking event that happens every Friday called Greeters, and a bunch of different business professionals and employees go and they chit chat and they learn about each other's businesses. And Ashley Meekum, who's a real estate agent, invited me to be part of her team, which basically means we run the welcome table. But it was still a very nice thing to be able to do. I don't always interact with that population as much because I do more nonprofit work, but it was wonderful. I got to listen to people who talked about how they used, there's one individual, she actually took a couple of the stickers a little early because she was excited. I hope that's okay. But she told me about how she used the bus for 2 years after moving back from Europe and was a big advocate. Garton is a big employer, and so is Shangri-La, who does work with different populations who highly utilize transit and has been happy to see us there. And there's been some previous employees who've been excited to see us there as well. So that's been a wonderful experience, and I just kind of wanted to shout out how nice it's been to kind of spend more time there again. I used to attend a lot, and I think I'm going to go back to attending a lot. So that was really nice, and I want to give a healthy shout out to Ashley for reaching out and inviting me to be part of that, because that was really kind of her. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much. Director Carney.
Thank you, President Hinojos Pressy. This is kind of a more boring update than Director Duncan's, but that's to be expected when you follow Director Duncan. So the SCATS Policy Committee met on the 22nd, so 2 days ago. In Commissioner Wardhorst's absence, I chaired the meeting. And we reviewed the proposed project list for the upcoming 2027-2032 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Plan. I will say, having missed last month's meeting, the membership of the current committee, which has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years, the membership seems very motivated by what they consider to be geographic equity in terms of their project selection. So I was quite surprised to see that the prioritization of projects had shifted pretty dramatically since the last time I had seen the evaluation, because I saw it after the TAC members had scored it on a technical scoring scale and then a qualitative scoring scale. And the technical scoring scale, and I'm gonna get pretty close, but I might not be exact, is like safety, reducing bottlenecks, fills in a gap, that kind of stuff. And then the qualitative score is like, how ready are you? And some of this more stuff. So anyway, our two proposed projects, the South Salem Transit Center and the replacement of paratransit vehicles, were right at the top of the list when we came in with the scores, yay. But then when I looked at the revised project prioritization with the lens of geographic equity at the meeting earlier this week, those aren't both at the top of the list. And I think we were successful in conversation explaining to other members of the policy committee what paratransit vehicles do and why they are important. And that helped them understand the necessity of either funding or partially funding or coming very close to funding that project, while also ensuring that every other voting member, up to and including Amsville, who is not a voting member, but maybe one day will be if we ever update the cooperative agreement that governs the group, up to and including Amsville gets a little slice of this pie. So that is how the project selection process is going. We're not completely to or over the finish line yet. Staff is going to do a little bit more work based on the recommendations of the different policy committee members. And then at our next meeting on August 26th, we will approve the project list to be included in the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Plan, which we then don't vote on, right? We adopt like a little piece here and a little piece here and a little piece here and a little piece here, so that when we get to a point where we are voting on the entire Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Plan, we've already voted in all of these little pieces that make up the entire plan. So that vote on the entire plan will happen in November of 2026. So we will see what that entails. But I was, and I shared with the policy committee, a bit let down that we would take the time to develop and refine prioritization, you know, a project prioritization like selection criteria, and then when it came to prioritizing projects, just like throw it out the window and be like, you know what, you're gonna get one, you're gonna get one, you're gonna get one. But that seems to be the overwhelming will of that committee, and it does require a unanimous vote to approve the overall transportation improvement plan. So we will see how that moves forward. And I also attended the Salem-Keizer Scenario Planning Advisory Committee number 5. I think that was just today. I've had a long week. But yeah, that was just this morning. So to kind of like ground people, remind you of what the scenario planning exercise is. When in our metropolitan planning area, which is Salem and Keizer and parts of unincorporated Marion County, we are beholden to the climate-friendly and equitable communities rules that were passed by the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And as such, we are required together to coordinate on a scenario plan. And a scenario planning tests the outcome of various policy choices with the intent of identifying the scenarios that best support our hoped-for outcomes. In this case, VMT reductions and greenhouse gas reductions. And so our preferred scenario phase for this work is complete, and our aim is to achieve a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, which Commissioner Cameron reminded us a number of times today that he would not be alive for. And then I think at one point he said maybe he would.
Oh.
And that he would still be here in these meetings. So we'll see. So we do the scenario planning. We are in the performance measures stage. So we were discussing the different performance measures. And after this, our scenario plan is considered complete, and it is submitted to the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And at that point, the local governments kind of take over in terms of implementation. And so Salem and Keizer are working right now to update their transportation system plans. And when they do that, that will be kind of like the implementation of these different actions to sort of get us to these performance measures. I will let this group know that the preferred scenario includes increasing transit supply revenue miles from 12.8 to 28.6, which I think is a 122% increase. And we did make one change to the proposed performance measures based on arterial miles after a good discussion by the city of Salem, who is considering in their transportation system plan a lot of road diets, so taking it out of the arterial classification. And then they were like, but does this create like a market? Like now is
Oh, sure.
like Marion County or Keizer just gonna build a lot of arterial and we're still gonna make our goal? So that was a good conversation. There's land use measures, bike and pedestrian transit a lot going into this scenario plan. But like I said, that will be submitted on September 30th to DLCD. And other than that, I just wanted to say, RJ, Director Navarro, excuse me, the Elks Club in Keizer is a place that is near and dear to my heart because my parents are very, very frequent guests. And so perhaps we will see you on National Night Out on August 5th. End of report.
Thank you very much. Director Davidson?
Thank you, President. I guess my one update for the Service Enhancement Committee is I would encourage my fellow board members to check out ridechariots.org. It's a wonderful website that highlights the Creating Community Connections efforts that Chief Rose has talked about, and there's several different prompts if you go look at it. Somewhere in there, there's suggested social media posts that if you are of the social media posting kind of person, you too can post, and they make it so easy for you. Even Director Laura Midkiff could do it. So.
I love that you just said the youngest person on this board. Even they could do it.
Yeah. I mean, we all know him, so. As for my report for the Council of Governments, Scott Datson, the Executive Director, has announced his resignation, so there will be a vacancy at the COG beginning, I believe, end of August, beginning of September. That coupled with a few other financial headwinds is creating a, let's describe it, a dynamic time at the Council of Governments. So I'll have probably more to report in the coming weeks and months. Very exciting times at the Council of Governments. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I think we'll go back into executive session. So will the clerk of the board please read the ORS?
Thank you, President. I know Host Pressey. The Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 subsection 2I to review and evaluate the employee-related performance of the Chief Executive Officer who has not requested an open hearing. Please note, while evaluating the Chief Executive Officer, the board may not use this executive session to conduct a general evaluation of agency goals, objectives, or operations, nor to issue any directive to personnel regarding agency goals, objectives, operations, or programs. In accordance with ORS 192.660 subsection 4 and 5, attendance is limited to members of the board, designated staff, and representatives of the news media. All participants, including media representatives, are respectfully reminded that discussions during executive session is confidential and may not be disclosed, except to state the general subject as previously announced. Any materials distributed during the session will be collected before adjournment, and no final action or decision will be made in executive session. If any final action is to be taken, it will occur after the board reconvenes in an open session in the Senator hearing room.
Okay. So back over there we go.
Go to bed.